My name is Montana, and I am the events coordinator for the MSA. So I'm going to be walking us through event funding and event planning. So, what is the purpose of event planning and why is it important? What are the key elements involved in event planning, and what are the goals and objectives of the event planning process? Concept development. It's important to have a clear vision for the event. We're going to go over the 5 W's together and talk a little bit more about where to source inspiration. So why? Why are you planning the event? What is your goal? Are you trying to raise money for your club? Are you just trying to get your group together to have some fun? What type of event do you wish to plan? Are you thinking large scale? Are you thinking small scale? Are you thinking on campus? Are you thinking off campus? Where? Again, where will it be held? Will it be held on campus, off campus? And is there a backup date and time? um, who is the event for, who will be hosting it, and who will be a part of the event planning. Um, so thinking a little bit about within your team, who you will be delegating tasks to, who will be assisting, and how will the event be delivered, and how will you measure success. So just thinking about following the event, how you'll be determining your event was successful by maybe doing a survey with attendees and kind of getting their feedback, as well as kind of sitting down with your team and discussing how things went together. Now we're going to talk a little bit about risk management. So we're going to be looking out for these risks listed here: alcohol and food. One thing to consider, obviously, with your guests is that some people have food allergies. So getting feedback from people ahead of the event is always important. Um, and if you're having alcohol at your event, maybe thinking a little bit about security risks, and just kind of keeping the event as safe as possible. Transportation is also very important. So if people are having to travel to your event, helping to arrange transportation is always beneficial. That could include providing the bus route or, um, carpooling together, something like that. Accessibility, kind of asking people about their accessibility concerns ahead of the event is important too, and just kind of making sure your venue is as accessible as possible. Lottery, you would need special licensing for something like this. Um, External speakers, so having your itinerary planned out with your external speaker, and kind of going over arrival times is extremely important, just to make sure that they're not late and it doesn't affect the flow of your event. If you're having a large event, obviously there's a lot of things to consider, but um, you want to make sure that everything is planned out to a T. Um, Controversial content. So obviously we don't want to be upsetting your guests. So kind of thinking ahead of time about what's going to be said, especially in relation to external speakers. Violence, harassment, and discrimination. Obviously, we don't want any of those things at our event. So kind of thinking about what could lead to something like this and trying to prevent it. Budget planning. So we're going to talk a little bit about the boring stuff. So you're wanting to calculate your expenses ahead of time, and allocate your resources effectively, so that you're able to do all the things that you want to do for your event without going over budget. You also want to take into consideration these things listed below, which includes tax, exchange rate, delivery cost, time, and pickup methods. So if you're able to save yourself the cost of delivery by picking something up, that's always great. But you also need to factor in, the time it takes to go and pick that up. So if you don't have the time, then maybe the delivery cost is worth it. Ticket sales. So if you're selling tickets to your event, are you selling them just to break even? Are you selling them to make money back? Are you not selling tickets at all? So those are all things to consider when it comes to your budget. So, marketing and promotion for events. The importance of selecting the right channels and styles for marketing and promotion. It's extremely important to promote your event properly. So, you kind of want to think about your demographic and what they would respond to best. So, if you have a large following on social media, that's a great method of promotion, whether that's stories or posts. Um, Even just kind of interactive polls, that's always cool too, to kind of get feedback ahead of the event, so you can kind of understand what people want to see when they attend. Um, However, if you don't have a very large following on social media, you want to think a little bit more about maybe in-person promotion, which could be table bookings within the college. Um, any way you can kind of get face-to-face with students is always awesome. So little pop-up booths, little giveaways if you can. Um, Class talks is another great face-to-face method. And then when it comes to more online methods, e-blasts always work great as well. If you have those existing emails, say it's within your club, obviously that's easy. But if you kind of have emails from a previous event where people have attended and provided their email to you, reaching out again to them so they know that you have another upcoming event is great as well. So, what does your event need? You just need to think about all the things that your event requires and making sure you make that list ahead of time and checking them off as you go. So, does your event require AV support? Are you able to set it up yourself, or do you require assistance for that? So, if you do require assistance, making sure you connect with the right people well in advance to make sure that they're able to be there to assist you. Does your event require tables and chairs? If so, how are you having them set up? Having a floor plan associated with that is always awesome. Just so you know where everything's going to be, the flow of the event isn't interrupted, accessibility is worked in, as well as just making sure all the tables and chairs are accounted for ahead of time. There's nothing worse than when you have 200 people coming and you only have 5 chairs. um, Having a podium if needed, and the associated mic if required. Again, linking back to the AV. Um, any other event supplies, so decorations, the fun stuff. If you need to go out and purchase that yourself, again, thinking back to your budget, Dollarama is a wonderful place to check out for event supplies. They've always got the latest themes going on, whether that's St. Patrick's Day or Valentine's Day, they've always got a good stock. Catering services, are you doing a full-blown catering situation, or are you, ordering pizza? What can your event support in terms of budget, as well as, how many people are you having? If you're only having 20 people, it might be easier to do something like pizza and have a vegetarian option if there's no other food restrictions. Security, you know, booking security is another expense, but if you're having a large scale event, it's definitely something to consider, as well as if you are serving alcohol at the event, just having that extra support is great. Again, transportation. So is your event far away? Are you, going to Niagara on the Lake? Are you going to Burlington? Um, Something to consider would be if you have the budget to even rent a small bus for the night, just to make sure your entire team gets there and back safely. That's well worth it. Volunteers. So this could be, people within your club or community, or it could be people who are looking to join and just kind of want to lend a helping hand, um, or a family member that kind of just wants to help you set up. Event execution. Having your itinerary with you throughout the event is definitely ideal. Just kind of looking at your timeline for the day and making sure that everything is covered. It's always great to provide extra itineraries um, to your team so they can kind of see where you're at in the schedule and lend those helping hands where required. It's also good to take attendance when your team arrives. Just make sure everyone's there. If there's any issues with, people arriving, something's happened, a car is broken down, just checking in with your team. You really want to try to set up early if you can, just so you're not running into any issues, at the end of what your setup time is supposed to be, and then you're kind of um, trying to scramble to finish everything. It's better to leave yourself more time than not. So, and you're going to be testing out any, AV equipment, your presentation materials, all those things ahead of time, just so you're not scrambling. You're going to want to have clear directions and entry and exit points. So, again, linking back to accessibility, but also health and safety. Um, and then providing accessibility supports prior to the event start. So, yeah, if you're able to kind of send out any sort of like survey or email or in your registration, you ask if there's any accessibility supports that you can provide. That's always great. So for evaluation and follow-up, it's definitely important to measure the success of your event. Um, and you want to kind of discuss with your team how you're measuring the success of the event and like what would qualify as a successful event for you. So would that be that 200 people came, or would it be that 50 people came, or would it be that people signed up to be a part of your club or community? Um, Thinking about how you're measuring that success. And then you're going to want to gather feedback from your attendees if you can. So sometimes that's a quick survey on the way out. Sometimes that's a survey a few days later, a poll on your Instagram story. You can think about how best to gather that feedback from the attendees that you've had. And then you want to kind of sit down with your team and host that debrief session and kind of discuss the lessons that you learned from the event, um, what could have been done better, what was done very well, and how you would carry out the next event together. So here is a list of event ideas. So for academic clubs, we have things like workshops and career fairs. Art clubs have things like um, different creative classes or open mic nights. Um, Cultural communities, things like well-being fairs or random acts of kindness days. So obviously there's far more than are listed here, but here are some things to kind of give you an idea of what you could do for your club or community. So if you want to take a minute to yourself and do a little bit of role play, the Mohawk Debate Club wants to put on a debate tournament. What, where, when, who, and why would be things to consider as discussed earlier on. Um, how much would this event cost? And the marketing materials to consider, any risks, the execution, and what would the evaluation look like. So if you want to take some time on your own to kind of think about how that would be carried out, feel free to message us with any questions. Um, but this is a good way to kind of get you thinking about planning an event. Moving on to finance. We're just going to go over a couple of things together in relation to making sure your club and community is properly funded. Um, so clubs and communities financials 101. So our fiscal year calendar is from May 1st to April 30th. Ideally, you would want to complete your budget sometime in the summer, just so you're kind of mapping out your year as best as you can. So ratified clubs receive a $200 Canadian annual budget for administrative costs, which includes club resources, supplies, and tools. So that is allotted funding. Ratified clubs can also make a request for additional club funding for events, initiatives, and activities. And this is called special request funding. So we're going to dive into those a little bit more. So a lot of funding. Here we've got a clear kind of timeline of what that all looks like and what is required. So you would let us know what you need and why. You would then wait for approval and a blank direct deposit form. Once approved, you can then purchase the item and make sure to save the receipt. Send us the receipt, make sure that it's itemized, make sure to also include your EFT form and direct deposit form, and we'll show you what those look like next. You would then get reimbursed within 2-ish weeks, and then you would be able to repeat as your budget allows. So special request funding. So fill out a funding request form. Then you would allow for 3 to 5 days for processing. You would have to do a funding presentation to our wonderful clubs and communities specialist HEPO. You would then wait for approval. Reimbursement would be similar to the allotted funding process. And then you would allow 2+ weeks for reimbursement to be processed. So these are just those reimbursement requirements that we kind of discussed. These are extremely important to be able to receive your reimbursement. So just on the left there is the EFT form. Make sure that when you're filling this out, you complete the entire page. So even though you're submitting a direct deposit form or a void check as well as the EFT form, and obviously that information on the direct deposit or void check is exactly what needs to be in the banking information section of the EFT form. That doesn't mean that you cannot fill out the banking information section. That entire form needs to be completed and submitted along with your direct deposit or your void check. And then you also need to include your itemized receipt. So the itemized receipt, making sure that it actually states, balloons, $3, not just a verification of your transaction. Okay, and that would be it for me. So thanks for joining me to talk a little bit about events. I'm going to pass it on over to Shakira to talk about promotion and recruitment.